Anon is the new science fiction film from writer-director Andrew MacNiccol. If you're unfamiliar, he did the movie In Time and one of my personal favorites, Gattaca. So in this movie, our main character is a cop, and it takes place in a sort of world where everyone and everything is recorded. There's like an implant in everyone's mind, and so basically everyone's laptop and computer and like cell phone are all in your head. And whenever the police need to like look at your files or your footage of your eye, they can use that to automatically, to take things out. And for example, one of the cases to show the sort of world is an undercover cop pulling a gun on a man and shooting him because he went into his pocket. However, looking at the footage, the man took 2 shots earlier in the day and was a little bit drunk, so his judgment was impaired, so that automatically, rules him as responsible for wrongful killing. So pretty much everything in this society is laid out on the table, which they don't really explore that too much, but the main plot of this movie is that our cop character is walking down the street when he sees this woman who's not, her name's not there, because she is a ghost of sorts, and her job is to go on message boards, and she finds people, and then she can alter their vision, like not their memories, but their visual logs of sorts. So let's say you cheat on your wife and you want to change that. So she would meet with you, you pay cash, she can hack into your brain and replace the footage of you having the affair with anything else, and then she can also hack herself out of your brain. So the police are trying to catch her because she's killing the people that she helps after they pay her. So they've got a serial killer on her hands, and she's like a powerful hacker. And the movie does have like that social commentary of the whole, if you got nothing to hide, it's not a big deal. But it's like, if you actually think about how awkward it is, I mean, like, what if you like wanted to pleasure yourself? Like there'd be like recording of that in your brain somewhere, and like imagine the police like contact you and they're like, hey, where were you between the hours of 3 and 4 a.m. and you're like, oh man, I was watching porn or something. Yeah, so they don't really go into that. It's everything in this future is stark and cold and grim. From the set design, like everything's bare because nothing's analog anymore, right? You don't need photographs anymore. You don't need paintings on the wall because everything's in your mind. And it's very similar to the steampunk world of steampunk aspects of Hyperion by Simmons. So that was cool, but overall the plot is boring. It's just a basic serial killer thriller chaser, and the sci-fi elements don't really add anything to it. I noticed the movie keeps switching like aspect ratios between like real vision and non-vision or whatever, and it was really jarring. I didn't dig it. And they tried to have this emotional angle with a dead son, and there's also a few, what was the other aspects? Yeah, the movie just is very generic, it doesn't have a lot of, it's missing that human element. Gattaca is such a good movie because it's all about the human spirit, even though it takes place in a cold, calculating world that discriminates due to your genetic code. And that emotional element was also missing in Time, and it's also missing in Anon as well, even though the cast is really great. You got Clive Owen, you got Amanda Seyfried, and a couple others I recognize. There's not much going on, and whenever the movie starts to ramp up like a tense chase scene or something, they always cut it off immediately with like a debrief, and then they go back to normal, and the movie never gets to build up to that sort of tension at the end. It's every time something big happens, like we stop, he gets suspended, or we stop, he gets fired, or we stop, and it kind of feels choppy at the end there. And overall, the movie does try to have that final sequence that has the whole social commentary thing about I don't want the government watching my thing. It doesn't really land, honestly. So Anon is a very bland movie, and there was one really interesting thing I noticed. Every time we cut back to the police station, there are more detectives at the desk, sitting at the desk, and that was an interesting visual thing. But overall, Anon is a very cold film. Emotionless, doesn't really use its sci-fi concept to enrich the procedural thriller killer chaser kind of plot line. So I give Anon a 4 out of 10.